Who here grew up reading the comic strips in the newspaper? I did also. Do any of you remember the Peanuts comic strip? Yeah, one of my favorites. So there's this Peanuts comic strip where Lucy is speaking with Linus, and it's at the base of a hill. And she says, "Someday I'm going over that hill and find the answers to my dreams. Someday I'm going over that hill and find fulfillment and hope. I think for me, all the answers to life lie beyond these clouds and over those grassy slopes of that hill." Linus removes his thumb from his mouth, points towards the hill, and responds to Lucy. "Perhaps there is another little kid on the other side of that hill who's looking this way and thinking that all the answers to life lie on this side of the hill." Lucy looks at Linus, then turns towards the hill and yells, "Forget it, kid." My point? So many people in our world are looking across the proverbial hill and trying to find the answers to the questions of their lives. Trying to find truth. Something that is foundational and that is lifelong, that is objective, that's universal, that's outside of their whims and circumstances and the relativity of our age. Trying to find something solid that can guide them through the many confusing messages and experiences of life in our age. I thought about all this and I thought, isn't this what is happening in today's gospel reading from Matthew chapter 11? When John the Baptist, from the darkness of King Herod's prison, sends some of his disciples to Jesus to ask him, "Are you the one who is to come, or shall we look for another?" Jesus responds to them along these lines, "Go, tell John what you have discovered about me, what you've come to know about me, both my teachings and my power." Then he gives a list of all the miracles that he does. And then he says, "And blessed is the person who is not offended by the truth of who I am, but who follows who I am, what I teach, what I do, and what I call others to do." Many are searching for answers. I think we all are searching for truth. We wouldn't be here on a Sunday morning if we weren't. That will lead us through this life. Jesus tells us this about himself succinctly. He says, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." This means that we need not look any further than Jesus for the answers to the questions in our lives and to find our true identity and purpose and place in this world. Jesus is the truth for our lives. He is the way to live our lives, and he is the one who will offer us the best life possible. One we could never gain on our own or by looking over the so-called hill for what the world has to offer us on the other side. Like the grass is always greener type of scenario. Okay. Then this, of course, begs the question, right? How do I gain access to this truth? And not just that, but how do I understand this truth? How is it accessible? How can I understand it, and how can it be sustaining throughout my life? Well, 2 years ago, many of you may recall, Father Mike Smith came out with a podcast called The Bible in a Year. When I pitched this to you, several hundred of our parishioners then have now gone through the entire Bible and the daily explanations Father Smith offers. They now understand more and better the truth of who God is, who they are in God, God's plan for humanity and for them as God's sons and daughters. The Bible in a Year has been the most listened to podcast in the United States, religious and non-religious, in the last 2 years. On the Bible, a priest reading it and explaining it, the most listened to podcast series. So in a few weeks, starting January 1st, Father Mike Smith is coming out with another podcast series, The Catechism in a Year. We know that the Holy Bible is God's revealed truth for the world. The Catechism of the Catholic Church is 2,000 years of reflective wisdom on the essentials of God's revelation for the world as passed down from generation to generation through sacred tradition to help us understand God's truth for us and how to live this truth as our way in our life. God's truth can set us free to be who God created us to be and help others in this same way. Therefore, much like we did 2 years ago as a parish congregation, I want to invite you to join the Catechism in a Year podcast series to help you find the answers to so many of your questions about God and the world. The problems of evil and human suffering, our reasons for being in this world, your mission and identity, prayer and worship, the importance of God's way, truth, and life to guide you in your day-to-day living, and how to equip you and empower you to help so many other people who come to you with these questions. And we stand there like, I don't know. With this podcast, you will spend, listen to this, you'll spend a few minutes every day. A few minutes every day, and this is what you get. Follow this. Number one, you listen to the entire Catechism of the Catholic Church in 365 days. No show of hands. But let me ask you this question. Have you even read the Catechism? Right? The two most important books for us as Catholic Christians. Of course, the Bible is the first. And second to that, to help us understand the Bible, is the Catechism. Have you even read it? In this case, you'll go through it in 1 year. And number two, understand the essentials of the Catholic faith and why they matter. Number three, see how our church's teachings is rooted in the sacred scriptures. Everything we teach and live by is found in the Bible. And what you'll see in this podcast, and also, by the way, there's a compendium to this, meaning the actual catechism that's produced by Ascension Press, that not only has the text, but also has all of the references to scriptures in it. Every page of the catechism is footnoted with the scriptures, because everything we believe in the scriptures, everything we live as Catholics is rooted in the scriptures. Have you ever had people come to you and say, where is that in the Bible, what you teach or what you live? Or you ever wondered that yourself? Well, the catechism is footnoted with everything, just filled with scriptural references. Number four, absorb over 2,000 years of sacred tradition, the collective wisdom of the church Christ founded, and absorb it in 1 year. Number five, encounter God's plan for humanity and for you. And number six, transform your relationship with Christ and His church and with other people. All in 1 year. And all with just a few minutes a day. If you've ever wanted to understand what it means to be Catholic, or simply to be human, and allow the truths Christ gave us through His church to shape your life, this podcast series is for you. The Catechism in a Year will begin on January 1st, 2023. Episodes will be released every day until the end of the year. Each episode will cover a new section of the Catechism, explain the context and the meaning, and show how to live out the teachings of Christ in daily life. And if you listen to the Bible in the year, you know how great a job Father Mike Smith does in explaining the why, the meaning. Ascension Press, as I mentioned, which publishes this podcast, has also released Ascension Press edition of the Catechism, which is the Universal Catechism, but it has then corresponds with every day of the Catechism in the year, along with a reading guide for each day, in case you want to read along or read later or go back and reference the day's readings and the day's explanation and the scriptural references. You'll be able to access the podcast from your favorite podcast apps. Please keep in mind that the Catechism in the year will not show up in these apps until January 1st, 2023. Here are some of the apps that will carry the Catechism in the year: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Hallow, which many of us use, and YouTube, to name a few. Following this weekend's Masses, we'll be sending out that special edition of the Parish's Flock Note, which has that link for all this stuff offertory, but also it'll have information about Father Mike Gentry's life, our new associate, and it will have information about this podcast series, inviting everyone to get ready to start the Catechism in a year with links so that you can sign up and you'll be ready to go with the podcast from your favorite podcast app. And the Catechism in the Year podcast is free. Absolutely free. And coupled with just a few minutes a day, why would we not do this? Listen, we all have many questions to life. The only way we're going to find the answers, the deep answers, is to go to the source of all life. Who is God? Ultimately, the answers will not be found on the other side of the proverbial hill. As Jesus reminded St. John the Baptist in today's gospel, the answers are found in a person, the person of Jesus Christ. Who he is and who we are in him, his teachings and in his power. Indeed, Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. So let us, each of us, as individuals who are trying to be Christ's disciples in this world, and as a parish full of Christians on a mission of evangelization to lead others to Christ, let us decide to actually spend some time, just a few minutes each day, coming to know and understand the truths communicated by Jesus through the sacred scriptures and sacred tradition by journeying together through the Catechism in a year.